These camps have been the home for the Palestinians in Lebanon for decades, but now there's a growing number of Lebanese moving into these camps. They're already overcrowded, but still, from food to rentals, it's the only thing that they can afford now. These are just some of the proof that despite the COVID crisis, the climate crisis needs to continue to be a top priority. Well, on Thursday night, when they announced that the EU Council approved this new Brexit deal, I think the message was very clear, which was our part is done and now it's up to you, to the UK, to approve it. And you can still see a lot of people using this crossing to get into their country or to coming to Colombia to get food and medicine, including small children, as we can see right now. And as rescue workers continue to try and find some remains in this mud, here you can see the sheer dimension of their challenge.
Mia Alberti joins us live in Beirut at the moment. Thanks for joining us. Now, how is the situation now after those hours of tensions today?
The conflict lasted almost 4 to 5 hours, and a lot of people are actually comparing the scenes that they have seen with scenes from the civil war, which devastated Beirut at the time. We saw children trapped inside of schools with parents unable to reach them because of the blocked roads. We saw, snipers shooting at people from the roof.
A pressure that culminated in violent sectarian clashes during a protest held by Hezbollah against the judge overseeing the investigation. 7 people were killed.
As the city tries to rebuild itself amid a tense calm, many questions remain. Who started the fighting and why? And most of all, what happens to the investigation at the heart of it all?
For many Lebanese, the investigation represents something greater, the systemic lack of accountability that's fueled corruption in the country for decades.
So all the question now is, are we going again to make this compromise and to say stability is more important than justice? But to what extent Hezbollah is ready to go?
For the families of the victims, the answer is clear.
We won't stop. We will ask for justice. And all the families here are in one hand, one heart, justice.
This is the reality for millions of people in Lebanon right now. Entire cities practically in the dark. In Tripoli, there's only 3 hours of electricity per day. And across the nation, hospitals are on the brink of shutdown and water supplies have been severely compromised.
On the ground, though, many citizens have resorted to seeking their own alternative solutions, such as solar power.
And no wonder why. Lebanon sees 300 days of sun per year. Wind and hydropower are also abundant resources. And although mostly untapped, these renewable sources are also seen as long-lasting and clean solutions to the current power crisis.
But Bashir is not Palestinian. He's Lebanese, and like dozens of other Lebanese families, the economic crisis in the country has made it too expensive for him to live anywhere else. So he moved into this UN-run refugee camp.
هون 400,000 إذا بدي أخذ بيت مثل حكاية هذا أجره مليون ليرة بالشهر ما في نمدك يعني بدك تشتغلي وتدفعي له صاحب البيت لا بتاكلي ولا بتشربي ولا بتعملي.
Bashir never thought he would live in a refugee camp. I asked him if he thought he would ever leave.
لا إذا دلت الأوضاع هون بالبلد ما في لهم مستقبل. ممكن يتعلموا هلا ممكن يتعلموا بس مستقبل بالبلد ما في.
The hope that was felt here 2 years ago has long faded. Lebanon has since plunged into a cycle of crisis, with many describing it now as a failed state. Across Europe, we are seeing full lockdowns, more restrictions, and travel corridors being shut down once again. But despite all of these efforts, the numbers of cases and deaths continues to rise. Poorer countries are at risk of not being able to receive the vaccine timely and with equity. And
the soup kitchen in central Budapest is a much-needed helping hand for hungry Hungarians.
Mentally, it's really hard, especially to see the children. You see them being happy about a single piece of orange, and they thank you with tears in their eyes.
Most of the people here have lost their income because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but many are not eligible to receive government help making initiatives like these their only lifeline to get by.
First, let's speak to Mia Alberti, who is at the Venezuela-Colombian border.
There are crowds, huge crowds already gathering at the entrance of the bridge, preparing to go across into Venezuela, and they have been chanting freedom, freedom, freedom. They have been there for hours, so the situation is quite tense.
4 people were killed and at least 20 injured in the clashes.
We know that the police is using pepper spray and tear gas and rubber bullets, but there are also reports that police on the Venezuelan side of the border is using live ammunition.
This is not about politics, ideology. This is about fighting for the freedom of our country. We live under a dictatorship. We live under a regime that kills us every day.
Jessica and her husband left Venezuela 4 months ago. They struggled to find housing, work, or school for their children. Now they depend entirely on this church-run soup kitchen to eat.
I came here to find a better life because my life there was terrible. We were hungry. Every day was something different. There's no medicine, no drugs.
Gianni is a smuggler along the border between Colombia and Venezuela. Every day he helps dozens cross the so-called trochas, dangerous paths that connect the two countries. Crossing the trochas is illegal, but Gianni and other human smugglers say the Colombian police doesn't bother them. Although the Colombian border forces are obligated by law to stop those trying to cross illegally, they just watch as hundreds of people walk by. In fact, these 2 Colombian guards even gave us directions.
After the border, we can't guarantee your protection. The divide is the river ahead.
The people here are afraid, but they are also determined that they won't leave this place and they won't stop fighting until they create some change in their country, in Venezuela.
Mia Alberti, a multimedia journalist who covers Latin America. President Bolsonaro took office in January. What's happened since then when it comes to the Amazon?
We saw an increase of 300% comparing to last year. That's the equivalent of a football field, actually 3 football fields every minute. Rescue workers race against time to find anyone still trapped in the mud after a dam collapsed in Brumadinho, a small town in the Minas Gerais state of Brazil. Anastasia is one of hundreds of locals waiting in this rescue center in Brumadinho. Her son was working in the mine when the dam collapsed and is missing ever since.
My problem has no solution, but there's a lot of people alive who work in these mining companies that need more attention, more safety.
Bruna Silva lost her son 9 months ago. Marcus was going to school when he was caught in a police operation in a favela. He was shot in the back and died in the hospital.
When I got to the hospital, my son was alive. His blood was still warm. And he asked me, "Mom, the police shot me. Didn't they see I was wearing the school uniform?"
As the president sets to ease further gun access, many are already asking if more guns will only mean more deaths like this one. Mia Alberti, TRT World in São Paulo, Brazil. Cúcuta, Colombia. In Frankfurt, in Budapest. Bedoui Camp, Tripoli. Mia Alberti, CGTN, in Beirut.